Alright, this next video is going to be on changing the spark plugs. Our first step is going to be, we're going to go ahead and remove the intake here just to give us a little bit more room. You're going to want to take your valve cover vent here off that goes into your intake. Yours may be a little different, but nonetheless, just remove that first. And go ahead and take your intake off if you want a little bit more room. I'm going to, because I'm going to be taking a lot more off than what you would need for spark plugs. Alright, our next step is going to be, we're going to get a nice stubby screwdriver like this, and you're going to go ahead and get behind your coil covers here and pry them up. They're going to be pretty tight, and it may seem like you're having to crank on them pretty good, but they'll eventually like pop up. So we'll go ahead and pop that up, and then you're going to want to pull it forward and go ahead and slide the coil cover out, and we got it out. So now we'll have access to our coils here. And we'll go ahead and get started on pulling a coil and replacing the plugs. Alright, now that we got the cover out of the way, we're going to go ahead and just start pulling a coil. I'll probably just do one by one. Pull a coil, replace the plug, and then replace the coil. So for doing it that way, the best way to do that is to start from the very back and work your way front. So we'll go ahead and start in the back here. Get back here. It's going to be a little tight to get in here, but the bolt that holds the coil on is an 8mm. So if you have a little 1/4 inch drive, you should be able to get in there no problem. So we're going to go ahead and get in there and loosen up our first bolt. Alright, once we get that bolt out, we'll go ahead and unplug the coil from the back, and we'll go ahead and pull it out. It'll take a little turning and stuff, but you'll be able to pull it out. And there's your first coil. We'll go ahead and set that to the side, and now we'll go ahead and get that plug out. Alright, before we go ahead and pull that plug, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I've got my socket wrench set up for that. First, if you don't have a spark plug socket, they actually make some that are specially for spark plugs. The spark plug on the S Type R is a 5/8 inch, and as you can see the inside of it, I don't know if you can see too well, there's like a little circle. There's actually a piece of rubber in there, and when you slide that over the spark plug, it'll actually hold the spark plug in place. So when you go ahead and loosen it all the way and you pull it out, your spark plug will actually be on it nice and snug in there. That way you don't end up dropping it down in the well. As you can see, that's my new plug, and as you can see, it's not coming out. So it's a good little tool to invest in, especially if you change your own spark plugs on most of your cars, because most cars are going to be 5/8 inch. Alright, now behind that, I'm going to have probably about a 3-inch extension. So go ahead and I'm going to set it up just like that. And that's going to make it long enough to go into the spark plug well. And then attached to that, I'm going to have, it's called a universal joint, and that will get attached to that, and that's going to allow me to have the rest of my wrench, my socket wrench, angled out for the hard to reach places, especially this back one we're going to do next. And then attached to that, I'm going to have about a 6-inch extension. Go ahead and attach it like that, and then right on top of that is going to be my socket wrench. So as you can see, it's pretty long, but it's definitely going to help you get into the hard to reach places. And actually help you from having to take even more stuff apart. So we'll go ahead and slide that down in there, and we'll pull that first plug. Alright, now we're back in the engine bay, and as you can see, I got my socket wrench all set up. I'll go ahead and just feed that socket down in there, and then kind of move it around so you can feel it get nice and snug on that spark plug. Now we're going to go ahead and loosen it. And as you can see, now I've got enough room in here that I can actually move the socket wrench. You're going to want to be very, very careful. Make sure that you're doing it the right way, because if you over tighten them in there, you can strip out your threads, and that's really bad. So I'll go ahead and pull out the plug here, and then I'll show you how to gap it, the new one, or double check the gap, make sure it's correct. Alright, so now we're going to take a look at the plugs and get them gapped, make sure they're gapped properly, and I'll show you how to gap it in case you the gap's not correct from the factory, which it should be if you buy like the plugs that are for the vehicle. So we'll go ahead and go over that. First, you're going to want to get a spark plug gapper like this, which is the wire kind. I highly recommend getting one like this. I'll show you the other kind, which you should never use on iridiums. Alright, apparently I can't find my disc one, but you'll see the other ones at the auto parts store. It's basically like a circle with a groove on it with all your measurements on it, and you're supposed to put the spark plug on there and then slide it around the circle. Do not buy one of those if you're putting in iridiums, and do not use it, because if you look at how really small that tip is, if you use that disc style, you'll end up snapping that little electrode down there, and your plug will be worthless. So you want to go ahead and stick with a wire one like this, and make sure you get one. There's two different kinds. There's one that's gonna have the gap of the STR, and there's gonna be one that does not. So double check and make sure you get the one. I forget which one this one is, but it will have the 0.40, as you can see down here. That's the gap of the STR. So basically how to use this is take it, get your new plug here, take the 4.40 here, and then you just go ahead and slide it through. Make sure it you got no gap there between your electrode there, and as you can see, this spark plug is gapped perfect. So that one's good to go. We can go ahead and install that. Now this one here, which is the plug I took out, as you can see, the 0.40 or 0.04 is like just not going through. So if your plug isn't gapped correctly, if you see these little tabs here, that's so you can use it on the end here, and then you could bend, and go ahead and bend it back, and then try it again. And that's what you're going to want to use to do your adjustments, because you don't want to stick anything in between there, because you'll end up busting that tip off and your spark plug will be useless. So you're going to want to go ahead and, without touching the electrode, use the tool like this to actually move that tip out to adjust the gap. And as you can see, I pulled it out, and now the 0.04 goes through. So this plug is now gapped correctly, but I won't be reusing that because that's the old one. Alright, you could also use something like this. It's feeler gauges. the set that I have doesn't have a 0.4040, so you would have to actually get two of them that would add up to that. And it's the same thing. You basically would put those two together, and as you can see, you would go through. This one clears, pull it off. The only problem with the feeler gauge is if your gap's off, you're gonna have to use a set of pliers to actually grab that part to adjust the gap. I don't like using that. I'd rather just get a tool that's made for the job like this, and then you're good to go. Alright, now that we got the plug gapped correctly, I'm going to go ahead and take our same setup here. I'm going to go ahead and feed the spark plug in. As you can see, now I got it nice and snug. Very carefully, we're going to go ahead and feed it down that well. Make sure you're nice and centered, and you're just going to nicely thread that in there. The thing with spark plugs is you're going to want to get it to where it's finger tight before you start wrenching on it. So I'll go ahead and get this one in here finger tight, and then I'll show you how to torque it down. Alright, once we got it nice and finger tight, the next thing you're going to want to do is get a torque wrench. It's a good investment. I bought this one at AutoZone. It was only like $22. You don't need a big extravagant one. A nice just 3/8 inch one will do. Spark plugs aren't going to be, a couple hundred foot-pounds of torque, so a small one like this will definitely do fine. I always make sure I torque my spark plugs, because if you put them on too tight, you're going to end up stripping out the threads in the head. And once you do that, you're pretty much, you can helicoil it or have someone helicoil it, but everyone I've ever heard of that's ever done that has always had problems after that. So you're going to want to make sure you do it right the first time. According to JTIS, the spark plug should be torqued at 20 pounds. So if you buy one like this one is in inch pounds. So you're going to want to make sure that you notice that and do the conversion. 20 foot-pounds is 240 inch-pounds. So go ahead and got it set for that already. Alright, we'll go ahead and set up the torque wrench. We'll go ahead and torque it. Alright, we got that torqued. Now we'll go ahead and install our coil. Down in there. Once we got it, we'll go ahead and put our screw back in. Another thing is, if you've ever done spark plugs on a regular car that doesn't have the ignition on coil, or the coil on plug, you'll notice the old style, you'd have to push it down until you actually heard it click onto the spark plug. On the coil on plugs here, that won't happen. I'll show you the inside of the next one, but basically it's just going to sit nice. You're not going to be pushing it in to hear a click like you would on the old style. So as long as it's seated and screwed tight, then you're good. You don't have to worry about it clicking in or anything like that. So we'll go ahead and get this one nice and tight. Once we get it tightened down, we'll plug this one back in. Now we'll move on to the next one. Go ahead and unplug that.